All right, welcome to our brief discussion of cities and globalization. The slides were designed to accompany the book People, Places, and Culture, and I am, of course, your host for the lecture, Ms. Gall. So, when we talk about cities and globalization, really different sized cities play different roles. So we've got some really super major cities, we call them world cities, and these are cities that function at a global scale, which is to say that they function beyond the reach of state borders, really. They're kind of the oil that helps the world economy function. So when we talk about Felsenstein, Schamp, and Schacker, what they say about it is that the world city is a node in globalization. It reflects processes that have redrawn the limits on spatial interactions. These world cities are really, they literally have reach all over the world. So it's not like, a city where most of the impact is local, like say the city of Seattle where we are, but really more like New York or Tokyo, where what happens in New York doesn't stay in New York, right? The New York Stock Exchange tanks, and that has implications all over the world. And that's what they're talking about when they say that these processes have redrawn the limits on spatial interaction. We talk about these major cities functioning as service centers in the global economy. They don't exist just to service the players. They're actually, in a lot of ways, players in and of themselves. Okay, so when we talk about world cities, really we're talking about the obvious ones, right? New York City, Tokyo, Japan, London, England, but also then there's second-tier cities, right? And these are cities like Brussels, Washington, D.C., L.A., Beijing, where their reach extends really kind of across the world. Okay? And their size, in a lot of ways, reflects that. So it's not just that these are mega cities, right? Mega cities being any city that's got 10 million or more people in it. But they're like mega cities on steroids because of the impact that they have that really in a lot of ways is outsized in some ways by the size of the city itself. Okay. And what they do is they function as kind of hubs, and they create these spaces of consumption. And as such, what they really do is they facilitate the development of a global popular culture. So that things that happen, for instance, in, say, New York City, which is what's pictured here is Broadway in New York, right? It starts there and then it spreads outwards from there. So the urban centers start to become major entertainment districts, right? Where items are consumed. And if you stop and think about this, it's true even when we're talking about smaller cities, right? Like Seattle or Tacoma. A lot of people would not choose to live in the city itself for a variety of reasons. Maybe they want to have a yard, or they don't want to be around that many people, or they're worried about the crime. You name it. There's a billion reasons why you might not want to live in a city. But most people, myself included, want to make sure that they live close enough to the city to have access to those resources, access to those entertainment options, to the museums, right? To the jobs, to all of those kinds of things that city life can provide. So when we talk about cities as really being cities and globalization, a big piece of what they do is they facilitate that process of globalization. They're those hubs of popular culture, and I know we haven't talked about culture yet in our classroom, but they're kind of that hub of popular culture, and it's from there that it spreads outwards and then eventually trickles downwards as well to the little people like you and me, right? I obviously not a big creator of popular culture, but like everybody else who lives in the United States, I'm a big consumer of it. So that's kind of the role that cities play in globalization. I know this is a super short lecture. It's really more of a mini lecture than anything else. Remember, those top tier cities, they really function above and beyond, especially the big ones, New York, London, Tokyo, you got to know those three as being really world cities, as being the biggest players in the global economy. We're talking about cities as having the most impact and things like that. But also then those second tier cities that are important politically, they're important culturally, right? But they're not necessarily, they're not at the same level as those bigger cities. And so here are these second tier cities, right? I mentioned a few earlier. I talked about Washington, D.C., Brussels, Paris would be in this category, Beijing would be in this category, and things like that. So if you have any questions, by all means, please feel free to come see me and ask them during class. And otherwise, I guess I'll see you the next time.